What's going on YouTube? In this video I'm going to be painting my caliper bracket, and I'm going to also be installing this caliper decal that I bought off the website right here, WS6 store. They sell some good quality stuff, mostly for 4th gen Camaros from Firebirds. I believe they might also have some 5th gen stuff, so let's get on with it. So this is the before picture. As you can clearly see, I already had painted it a few months back. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bracket and caliper, respray with the caliper paint that I use, and after that I'm gonna install the decal somewhere around here. Once that's set, I'm gonna spray with some clear gloss, high temperature clear gloss. Should look pretty good. As you can tell, got it on jack stands. It's got a regular hydraulic jack for extra support. Got the wheel ramp I'm gonna use to lay the caliper on, so I can spray it here. I'm not gonna remove the caliper completely and open up the brake line hose. I don't want to deal with the whole anti-lock brake system, purging and all that stuff. This is what the finished product should look like. This is on the passenger side. I did this earlier. As you can see, I think it looks real good. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do, take out these two 12mm bolts that hold the caliper to the bracket. Mine's already pre-loosened. Take them off quicker. I set this rag on top of my wheel ramps so I can set the caliper. Since mine's been painted before, I didn't want to try to keep it from getting too scratched up. So set it right here. After that, you're gonna remove your brake pads, front and back. Along with your brake pad guides, top and bottom. So next, after that, you're gonna want to remove your bracket. Quick tip: leave a couple of lug nuts in reverse to keep the rotor in place, keep it from flapping and hitting the caliper. Especially important once you go to reinstall and your bracket is all painted and shiny, and you want to minimize the risk of getting it damaged or scratched. Very important. So next, you're gonna want to remove these two 18mm bolts that hold the bracket in place. As you can see, mine are also loosened up for the video purpose. Calipers off, caliper bracket set it to the side. Once you get to this point, you can go ahead and, if you want, take the rotor off, clean it up, or if you're gonna replace it. And for me, I'm gonna go ahead and prep this for respray. If yours hasn't been painted, obviously you're gonna want to clean it up as much as possible. Wheel brush, wire brush it, degrease it, whatever is best. Okay, so I got the caliper bracket all cleaned up and taped up, ready for respray. If this is your first time, obviously this will be the aluminum color. You want to give it maybe around 3 coats, maybe even 4. I've previously given it around 2, maybe 3, so I'm just maybe give it a couple more. Alright, so once the paint has set, I'm going to go ahead and spray with the clear coat. Also, forgot to mention, you want to make sure you cover up the threads. You don't want to get paint in them. And also make sure to tape these up where the pins go. Definitely don't want to get paint in there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it with the clear coat.
Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us in love.
Alright, so I'm gonna let that set for a few hours, and then I'll install the push pins and be ready for install of the caliper brackets. Alright, so now I got the caliper prepped and ready. Got all the parts taped up, brake line, hose taped up, you know, newspaper for any overspray obviously. Here we go.
All we'll ever trust, yeah. No, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns.
Alright, so now I'm just let it set for a good half hour. Turn it over to the top side. Alright, so the bottom is pretty much done. I'm gonna go ahead and do top side right here. Do nice even strokes. Try to make it as uniform as possible. Not looking for perfection, but just doing the best I can. You don't want to get too close. Try to avoid as much as runs as you can. That's the number one problem when you're spraying, is the runs. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that set in, and then apply the decal, and then put the spray with some clear coat. Okay, so after letting the paint dry for a few hours, I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with the high temperature clear gloss. Give it about 2 coats and then let it dry for a few hours, about 10 minutes in between coats or so. With the bottom side again, and let it dry. Turn it over, apply the decal, and then hit it again with the clear gloss.
Sun rays, and on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways.
Okay, so let it dry to the top part. Okay, so now the bottom is dry, clear coated. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the top side and apply the decal. I'm gonna go ahead and use this caliper line and these curves as my guide. I went ahead and took a good look at it and remember where I placed it on the passenger side, which I did earlier. So I'm gonna remove the backing paper slowly and carefully. So it gets a little tricky. You want to make sure that it stays on the adhesive part and not on the backing paper, like so. Again, I'm using the line on the caliper. Yours might be a different size, different design, so this works for me. And that works. Go ahead and just press it. You don't want to leave the adhesive on too long. The backing paper, this part right here. Otherwise, it'll peel off some of the paint that you should apply. Ask me how I know. Now you want to carefully, very slowly peel this part off. And so then you want to just kind of press it down. I'm gonna use this so I don't minimize the fingerprints. Okay, that's pretty good. Next, apply the clear coat. Alright, so I'm gonna let that sit in for about 10-20 minutes. Spray another coat and then get ready for installation. Okay, so I let the paint sit overnight so it can be fully cured. As you can see, I got all my parts laid out. Went ahead and cleaned out the rotor and also painted my wheel hub. I know it's overkill, but I figured why not. The first thing I'm gonna do was just apply some high temperature grease behind the rotor using this multi-purpose grease that I use for various applications. This also helps if you have issue with rust on your wheel hub. It won't get stuck as much when you're trying to remove your rotor for future maintenance. Okay, so I got the rotor back in place. I had said earlier I installed these two lug nuts in reverse to hold the rotor in place. So now that I will install my brake caliper bracket, it'll minimize the risk of it getting scratched. I also went ahead and installed the push pins, added some grease, just basic stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and install my brake caliper bracket now. Got my torque wrench. I'm gonna torque it to 74 foot-pounds. Okay, so the brake caliper is now bolted down, torqued down to spec. I made sure and use some blue Loctite. I also went ahead and installed the brake pad clips and the one that goes to the brake caliper. So now I'm gonna get the brake pads ready. Use some basic brake lubricant. So I got the brake pad all greased up. This is the one that goes in the back of the rotor, the one with the wear down guide. I grease it up where the pad meets the pistons. Okay, so now I'm going to grease up the front brake pad. You want to make sure and grease it up along these lines where the caliper meets the brake pad. Just like so. Okay, so now that the brake pads are in place, one thing to note is you want to make sure you grease up this part of the caliper where it sits on the caliper bracket clips to avoid any possible squeaks. And now we can go ahead and install my brake caliper. Okay, so I got the brake caliper in place. Last thing needed to do would be to install the caliper bolts, torque them down to 27 foot-pounds. I read online that anywhere between 22 to 27 will be an appropriate torque spec. Once again, making sure I use some blue Loctite. Okay, so that's the finished result. I think it looks really good. The one thing you want to make sure you want to do before you install your rims back on is make sure you clean your rotor up, some brake clean, and it should be all set to go. Okay, so I got the wheels back on, got the car back on the ground. As you can see, the end result. In my opinion, it looks really good. Definitely well worth it. Quick look at the rear caliper that I done on a different day. It's pretty much the same process. Yes, the calipers are smaller, so I was only able to put the 2 SS letters. But in my opinion, it goes well with the front. So if you like the video, go ahead and subscribe. On to the next.